The Cherokee are one of the most famous and historically significant Native American tribes in the United States. They originated in the southeastern part of what is now the United States, primarily in areas that include present-day North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. The name Cherokee comes from a Creek word meaning people of a different speech, although they called themselves unyielding, meaning the main people or the real people. With a culture rooted in rich traditions, advanced systems of governance, and a deep connection to the land, the Cherokee were one of the most influential tribes before European contact. They developed complex communities and played an important role in the cultural and political landscape of pre-colonial North America. Their history is marked by resilience, both in the face of European settlers and during the traumatic period of forced removal in the 19th century. Early history and culture of the Cherokee. The Cherokee are of the Iroquoian language family, although their origins and migration stories suggest they may have moved south from the Great Lakes region. By the time European settlers arrived, the Cherokee had settled in the Appalachian Mountains and surrounding areas. Archaeological evidence suggests they had been in the area for at least 1,000 years, although oral tradition may trace their history back even further. Cherokee society was organized into clans, with a matrilineal system in which lineage was traced through the mother's side. There were 7 main clans, each with its own responsibilities and roles within the tribe. This system helped organize social relationships and governance, creating a balanced and well-rounded way of life. Cherokee governance was relatively sophisticated. The tribe was divided into 2 distinct groups, the White Council and the Red Council. The White Council was in charge of peacetime matters such as diplomacy, trade, and community management, while the Red Council oversaw decisions regarding war. Leaders, including chiefs and council members, were selected based on their wisdom, experience, and the respect they had earned within their communities. Women, especially clan mothers, also had significant influence in these decisions, a testament to the gender egalitarianism of Cherokee society. The Cherokee economy revolved around a combination of agriculture, hunting, and gathering. They were skilled farmers growing crops such as corn, beans, and squash, often referred to as the Three Sisters, which formed the basis of their diet. Farming was primarily a women's occupation, while men were responsible for hunting game such as deer, elk, and wild turkey. Cherokees were also skilled at fishing, foraging, and managing their natural resources sustainably. Cherokee villages were often located near rivers or streams and consisted of wooden houses made of acacia and clay, a combination of wicker and clay. The center of each village was a council house where important political and social decisions were made. Religion played a vital role in Cherokee life, centering on the belief in a balance between nature and spiritual forces. They worshipped a variety of deities and spirits, many of whom were tied to natural elements like the sun, moon, and animals. The Cherokee performed numerous rituals, many of which were tied to the agricultural cycle. These rituals were designed to bring harmony to the community and were believed to influence things like weather, harvests, and health. The green corn ceremony, held in the late summer, was one of the most important Cherokee religious festivals. It was a time of thanksgiving for the harvest, a period of renewal and forgiveness. Participants would fast, clean their homes, and partake in rituals to cleanse their spirits and bodies. It was during this festival that disputes were often resolved, and people sought forgiveness for any wrongdoings committed during the year. Cherokee mythology and oral traditions were also rich and complex. They believed in a spirit world that coexisted with the physical world, and that all living things, from animals to trees, had spiritual importance. Oral traditions were a key aspect of Cherokee culture, passing down stories of creation, tribal history, and lessons for living harmoniously with the natural world. The Cherokee language belongs to the Iroquoian family and is distinctive for its syllabary system, which was developed in the early 19th century by a Cherokee scholar named Sequoyah. This writing system was one of the first for any Native American language, and it enabled widespread literacy within the Cherokee Nation. The ability to read and write in Cherokee gave the tribe a unique position among Native American tribes, helping them create a written constitution, newspapers, and legal documents. This early embrace of literacy set the Cherokee apart as one of the most forward-thinking tribes in North America. The Cherokee contact with European settlers. The Cherokee's first significant contact with Europeans occurred in the 16th century when Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto and his expedition traveled through their territory in search of gold and riches, initiating a series of interactions that would dramatically affect the Cherokee way of life. By the late 1600s and early 1700s, the Cherokee had developed extensive trade relationships with the British settlers in the southern colonies, particularly in the Carolinas. This trade initially brought benefits to the Cherokee, including firearms, metal tools, and European cloth. In exchange, the Cherokee traded deerskins, furs, and other goods. These new trade relationships began to alter traditional Cherokee ways of life, as European goods became increasingly integral to their economy and daily survival. As European powers vied for control over North America, the Cherokee became increasingly drawn into colonial conflicts. During this period, the Cherokee formed alliances with the British, particularly against the French and their allied tribes during the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. The Cherokee supported the British in the hopes of securing their own territorial claims and maintaining some level of autonomy. Despite initial cooperation, the relationship between the Cherokee and European settlers became strained as more settlers encroached upon Cherokee lands. The British, eager to expand their colonies, began pressuring the Cherokee to cede portions of their territory through a series of treaties, often made under duress or with only a few representatives of the Cherokee present. The Treaty of 1721 was one of the first significant land cessions, but it was followed by others in quick succession. These treaties gradually reduced Cherokee landholdings, creating growing resentment among the Cherokee people. By the 1750s, tensions between the Cherokee and British settlers had escalated into open conflict. The Cherokee War, 1758 to 1761, was a series of skirmishes and battles between the Cherokee and colonial militias. The conflict was a response to settler encroachment, broken promises by colonial officials, and general distrust. The war ultimately ended with a negotiated peace, but it left the Cherokee weakened, and they were forced to cede even more land to the British. These land losses set the stage for further conflicts as the American colonies moved toward independence. Throughout this period, the Cherokee population was further devastated by smallpox epidemics that swept through their communities in waves. The first epidemic occurred in 1738, wiping out nearly half of the Cherokee population. This decimation made it more difficult for the Cherokee to resist European encroachments and weakened their political and social structures. Despite these challenges, the Cherokee continued to resist the loss of their lands and maintained a degree of political autonomy until the late 18th century. The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783, brought a new level of complexity to Cherokee-European relations. As the 13 colonies fought for independence from Britain, the Cherokee were divided on how to respond. While some Cherokee leaders saw an opportunity to regain lost lands by siding with the British, others advocated for neutrality or aligning with the American patriots. The majority of the Cherokee, however, chose to support the British, hoping that a British victory would halt American expansion into their lands. Cherokee warriors, particularly from the Chickamauga faction, launched raids on frontier settlements in support of the British cause. These raids were aimed at disrupting American militia efforts and discouraging settlers from encroaching further into Cherokee territory. The Chickamauga Cherokee, led by the influential war chief Dragging Canoe, were particularly vocal in their opposition to American settlers. Dragging Canoe and his followers established villages further down the Tennessee River and waged a guerrilla-style war against the American frontier. These Cherokee warriors were relentless in their efforts to resist American expansion, earning Dragging Canoe the reputation as one of the fiercest Native American leaders of his time. Despite their efforts, the Cherokee suffered heavy losses during the American Revolution. Patriot forces, often backed by state militias, retaliated against the Cherokee, burning villages and destroying crops. This scorched earth tactic aimed to starve the Cherokee into submission, and it was highly effective. By the end of the war, the Cherokee had been forced to sign the Treaty of Hopewell in 1785, which further reduced their landholdings and opened the door for even more settlers to move westward. Following the American Revolution, the United States government adopted an aggressive policy of westward expansion, which further eroded Cherokee territorial control. Despite their alliance with the British, the Cherokee found themselves facing continued pressure from American settlers and land speculators eager to move into the fertile lands of the southeastern United States. Although the Cherokee had sought to protect their land through diplomacy, their divided loyalties during the Revolution left them vulnerable to American retribution. The post-war period was marked by a series of treaties, most of which were unfavorable to the Cherokee. These treaties eroded what little autonomy the Cherokee had left and set the stage for their eventual forced removal in the 1830s. In the 1830s, the Cherokee faced forced relocation under the Indian Removal Act, signed by President Andrew Jackson. Despite the Cherokees' legal victory in Worcester v. Georgia, which affirmed their right to remain on their lands, Jackson ignored the ruling, pushing for their removal. A small Cherokee faction, led by Major Ridge, John Ridge, and Elias Boudinot, signed the Treaty of New Echota in 1835 without the consent of the majority of the tribe or Chief John Ross. This treaty ceded all Cherokee lands in the east in exchange for territory in Oklahoma, leading to the tragic Trail of Tears, where thousands of Cherokee suffered and died during the forced migration. The treaty called for the Cherokee to voluntarily relocate within 2 years, but when the deadline passed, many Cherokee had not yet moved. This led to the forced removal, known as the Trail of Tears, during which U.S. military forces, under the direction of General Winfield Scott, rounded up Cherokee families, placing them in stockades before marching them westward. The forced migration of the Cherokee between 1838 and 1839 was one of the most tragic events in Native American history. Over 16,000 Cherokee were forced to leave their homes and march over 1,200 miles to the designated Indian Territory in what is now Oklahoma. The journey, marked by exposure to harsh weather conditions, inadequate supplies, and disease, claimed the lives of an estimated 4,000 Cherokee. Entire families, including the elderly, women, and children, were subjected to brutal conditions as they traversed through cold winters, enduring hunger and lack of medical care. The trauma of the Trail of Tears left an indelible mark on the Cherokee people, many of whom lost their homes, lands, and loved ones. This forced relocation also disrupted the social fabric of the Cherokee, as many of their cultural traditions were severed and their political structures disintegrated under the weight of this catastrophe. The Trail of Tears not only caused immense physical suffering, but also had profound cultural and political repercussions. Many traditional Cherokee ways of life were lost or severely disrupted during this time. Communities were fragmented, and much of their oral history, spiritual practices, and everyday traditions were in danger of disappearing. In addition, the division caused by the Treaty of New Echota led to internal strife among the Cherokee in the years following their relocation. The Ridge family members who had signed the treaty were seen as traitors by many within the tribe, and several were assassinated as retribution for their role in the forced removal. Despite these divisions, the Cherokee worked to rebuild their nation in their new home, gradually reestablishing political institutions and cultural practices. After the traumatic events of the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee worked diligently to rebuild their society in the new land west of the Mississippi. In the Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma, they faced many challenges, but they were determined to preserve their identity and sovereignty. By 1846, the Cherokee had reorganized their government, adopting a new constitution and establishing a Cherokee National Council that mirrored the democratic principles of the U.S. government. This allowed the Cherokee to maintain a degree of self-governance despite their relocation. Economic life in the new Cherokee Nation centered around agriculture. The land in Indian Territory was fertile, and the Cherokee once again grew staple crops like corn, beans, and squash. The Cherokee also engaged in trade and began to rebuild their schools and communities. Education played a key role in their resurgence, with the establishment of Cherokee schools and institutions like the Cherokee Female Seminary, which offered advanced education to Cherokee women. The Civil War, 1861 to 1865, brought further disruption to the Cherokee. The tribe was divided between those who supported the Confederacy and those who sided with the Union. Stand Watie, a Cherokee leader, even became a Confederate general. This internal division, along with the broader impacts of the war, resulted in significant hardships for the Cherokee. After the war, they faced additional challenges as the U.S. government sought to renegotiate treaties and further reduce their territory. Despite these difficulties, the Cherokee continued to assert their rights and rebuild their nation in the latter half of the 19th century. By the 1870s, the Cherokee Nation had a functioning government, schools, and a growing economy. Their resilience in the face of continual displacement and conflict exemplified their ability to adapt while preserving their culture. Today, the Cherokee Nation is one of the largest federally recognized Native American tribes in the United States, with a population of over 300,000 enrolled members. The modern Cherokee Nation, headquartered in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, has worked tirelessly to preserve its cultural heritage, language, and traditions, while also engaging with the broader economic and political landscape of the U.S. In recent years, the Cherokee Nation has made significant strides in education, healthcare, and economic development. The tribe operates its own schools, hospitals, and businesses, providing services not only to its members, but also to the broader community in Oklahoma. Efforts to preserve the Cherokee language have been particularly successful, with immersion programs and resources aimed at revitalizing the use of Cherokee among younger generations. Despite the numerous challenges they have faced, from European colonization to forced removal, the Cherokee Nation remains a vibrant and important part of the American cultural mosaic. The history of the Cherokee people is marked by both triumph and tragedy. From their early days as one of the most influential Native American tribes in the southeastern United States to the devastating experience of the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee have consistently demonstrated resilience. Their ability to adapt to new circumstances while preserving their cultural identity has enabled them to survive through some of the most difficult periods in American history. Today, the Cherokee Nation thrives as a testament to their strength, continuing to honor their traditions while also embracing modernity and progress.